All right, welcome back to the Meadow Podcast. I am Tracy, and this is
Mike.
and for this episode, we are diving into one of the four pillars that make up the Meadow Method. The four pillars being physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. And for this episode, we're honing in on physical health and specifically with navigating our relationship with food and nutrition. And so we'd like to open it up, or I'd like to open it up by just asking Mike about his background with food. Basically, how did you grow up? How was food approached in your household? What were your eating habits that you inherited?
Yeah, I grew up in a house that was, say, I don't know, second, third generation, a combination of Italian, German. But I think we both share mothers who like to cook, who have to cook, who got good at cooking, but it wasn't traditional, at least on my side. I'd say yours is different. So even though my mom's mom came from Italy, my mom was an American. She cooked like an American. It was like spaghetti and meatballs, I feel like these are just basic things.
Standard American diet?
Standard good American diet, like middle class. We were very middle class. So not a lot of junk food.
What were the go-to dinners?
Spaghetti and meatballs was a big one. In the summer, you grilled, hamburgers or hot dogs, pasta, lasagna.
What did you eat for breakfast?
Cheerios, Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, all the crunches, the bottom shelf of the cereal aisle. Yeah, that was a big one. For sure.
And what did you take to school for? Did you eat school lunch or did you pack your own lunch?
Actually, I was just talking to my mom about this morning. So I was a very picky eater, as most kids are, but I was never forced to eat in the school hot lunch aisle, where she did it differently for my brother, who's a few years younger, where I was really picky. And I would eat the same sandwich all year. So like salami, tuna fish, peanut butter and jelly would be all year round.
Oh, each year it'd be a different sandwich? So
year,
you'd get fixated on a particular one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there would be pizza in the hot lunch aisle on Fridays. And she would really push me to go and get the hot lunch because it's like she didn't have to cook. She didn't have to make my lunch that day. But I wouldn't do it. And she wouldn't understand why because it was pizza. But she found out that the lunch line took time to wait in. And that was time I didn't get to play in recess. So it took away my recess time. So right from the bat, she told Devin, my brother, that you have to go and get hot lunch. So it was a combination.
Okay. Yeah, I would, what?
I was going to say, you see where our son gets it from.
I never thought of you as being a picky eater. You're not picky at all.
I would eat
now.
a lot, but I'd be picky.
Okay. Yeah, I think kids definitely have strong food aversions, compared to, that we lose as we become adults and desire more novelty with our palates. I would say, my mom is Korean, from Korea, didn't move here till she was 19. And so she, but my dad was American. So we ate I would say my mom was very good about cooking quite a bit, but she was also a working mom for a lot of my childhood. So definitely leaned on fast food, convenience foods, tons of processed foods with it. So it was a mix. And so, I feel like we got all of our nutrition needs met. We were healthy kids. Otherwise, we were healthy weight the whole time. And I think we also got away with it because my brother and I were very active. And so we were always playing sports. So never had weight issues or anything like that. But definitely a ton of processed foods, like bagel bites, Hot Pockets. My school lunches were always, a salami sandwich with a bag of chips, cookies, fruit roll-ups, gummies.
Wasn't that pretty normal?
That was totally
that,
normal. I don't think there was nearly as much awareness or fixation on the amount of sugar that we consumed or any of that kind of stuff. I would say the saving grace in my household was my mom never bought soda. So we never we never had soda around or candy or anything like that. But I would say for sure it as I was navigating my like relationship with food as I started to go into high school and college, it definitely was challenging because I would say that being raised on hyper palatable foods is like how I think of like processed foods. It's like a real addiction. And it's taken, I would say I have broken that addiction largely now, finally, like I'm almost, it took like 20 years. I'm almost 40 years old and feel like, yeah, it was like such a long journey. But okay, so that's how you grew up in your household. When you transitioned to college, how was your relationship with like, you had, I think it's interesting to like talk about though, you had like a little bit of like a few years when you were in late elementary, maybe middle school, where you were overweight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just the habits, right? It's like you mentioned you were active during that time, and that's why you're able to keep the weight off. I wasn't for a couple of years. It's like we had in my sophomore year, played basketball in high school, but my sophomore year, this freshman class came in, and like two of the guys ended up playing in the NFL. They were just absolute ballers, like throwing
You went to
down
a big
dunks, all boys.
regional all boys Catholic
Yeah, exactly.
school.
So they pulled, think of it like double
Yeah.
the population because it's all guys.
Yeah. So the athletics were next level.
Insanely. Yeah, they're very good. So basically I was like, all right, you're not playing basketball now. So I would come home and just sit on the couch and eat a Hot Pocket. So
Your sophomore year in high school?
yeah, watch TV.
Okay.
And then I was like, oh shit, I'm getting fat.
That's when you got overweight. You became overweight, or were you? Okay.
For sure. And then got
So it's
into
largely
running.
being sedentary.
Sedentary and eating crap after school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what changed then?
So I started running. I think I developed a love for running, which ended up turning into longer and longer, cross country in high school, and then marathons, and then ultra marathons and Ironmans after that. But running in the high school was like just getting in shape, like girls, were major, like probably the biggest motivation, like looking good, being able to get a girl to go to a prom, it's like, okay, that's how it's going to happen. You got to lose weight. Yeah.
Okay, so you're as an external motivator wanting to appear attractive to the opposite sex. Okay, and then in college, did you have any struggles with eating or drinking or any of that, or your weight ever?
Yeah, I wasn't really, alcohol wasn't really withheld strongly before I was 21. Like my parents would buy us some beers if we stayed at the house. Like my friends could come over. If they gave their keys away, they could like drink. So it wasn't really forbidden. It was like, hey, if you do it, don't drink too much. Be aware. It was, I think, how I'd want to be how I want to raise our kids, where it's like you treat it like the dangerous but also fun substance that it is. And I never had an abusive relationship with. I mean, got smashed. Would wake up hammered more than I'd want. But was it worth it? I don't know. Like it was fun. It was probably just. At that time,
you never had a problematic relationship with alcohol in a way.
And I remember people who would, they would
like you never woke. Did you ever wake up with a hangover and just loathe yourself and swear that you're never going to drink again?
Yeah. A couple of times for sure. But
did you ever get blackout drunk?
Yeah. But I think
did you ever do anything that you regretted the next day?
Yes to all these questions. But
okay,
I never.
So I would say our culture like so normalized. That's like it's just so normalized, and I like to push back on that a little bit because while like sure altering your consciousness with alcohol, like that's the substance that's available and that's most culturally accepted. But I just like to point out like how drinking to the point of not remembering the next day, to me, that should be seen as problematic. Like we shouldn't normalize that. And it's not something that you strive to, that's, if you're lucky, you outgrow that as soon as you leave college. But not everybody does. And so anyway, I just want to point that out.
For sure. Yeah, obviously it's not good. But the real risk I see in all that is the addiction element of it. It's one thing to hit your head against the wall and be like, damn, that really hurt. But then if you want to keep doing that and it starts to erode your studies, your relationships, your physical health, obviously that's really like the really problematic thing. It's one thing to do something one time, but then to just keep doing it is, you know, you see people who do that in college. Who
I
just
did it to the point of it being like it affected my grades and stuff like that.
drinking during the week,
Yeah.
in the mornings.
I
Or
didn't,
just in the-
at UVA, there were days we started drinking in the mornings. Yeah, day drinking was very common.
Yeah, usually for sporting events or parties and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a pendulum shift going on where there's, I think, statistically less alcohol consumption in the 20s, you know, people 20 years old than there once was. And I think that's due to socially, these schools are like pushing back on the massive party scene. At least at UConn, where I went, which is a major, they had spring break. People come, like tens of thousands of people. They really crack down on that. It's not.
You think that's why culturally people are
I think that's
drinking less?
one. So there's like, and that's pressured by the legal component. Like people get hurt, killed, whatever.
But that's always been I don't think that's a new phenomenon. I think there's other things going on.
I think there's other substances available. Marijuana is now legal in most states. People vape. That wasn't available. That seems, I mean, what else?
I've seen a lot of health and wellness educators and influencers sharing that now there might be no safe amount of alcohol to drink, actually, in terms of the harms on your health. Like, it's a known neurotoxin. It literally kills neurons, and hepatotoxin, so it causes liver damage. I always like to contrast that with psilocybin, which is not known to be toxic to any organ in the body, for example. Sure, the dose makes a poison, of course. So, you know, in small amounts, is it okay? Like, probably. But yeah, anywho. Okay, so that's your relationship with alcohol. And then, how, you know, in the years kind of going into your 20s, how I feel like you've, at least since I met you when we were 27, I feel like you very much look at food as like very functionally. Like, this is fuel, and you're not a particularly emotional eater whatsoever.
I feel like I had the Japanese mentality. That's how they look at food. They look at it as fuel. It's like, it's not something that you...
Or medicine.
Yeah, sure. But either way, they eat what they need to.
Not as entertainment or an emotional salve or...
It can be enjoyable, but the vast majority of meals are for fuel. You know, you clock in at...
Not social, you mean?
They're not decorative or social or celebratory. They're like Tuesday afternoon lunch is like, eat well. Just eat something that's good for your body, and have that just be default. What you eat, there's a rule I think they have, like the translation is eat till you're satisfied, not till you're full. Don't pop a button on your pants.
Eat until I've heard like eat until you're 80% full.
Yeah,
You don't need to eat until you're 100% full.
Yeah.
Stop when you feel 80%.
Yeah.
So do you identify any problematic like relationships with food? Like anytime you've ever eaten because of stress or to like, I don't know, maybe how's your relationship with sugar and sugary
Not
things?
great. It's amazing. Like we've talked about this kind of, I don't know the psychology behind it. Maybe it's interesting where I feel a difficulty in not doing something, like not eating a cookie or not...
like abstaining.
Abstaining, right. Whereas the discipline to do something comes much easier. Like, okay, you got to wake up at 5:30 to do jujitsu 5 days in a row. Sure, I'll do that. I'll work, you know, whatever the doing part is, comes much more naturally, but abstaining is harder. So if there's a visual connection.
Like the willpower to not do something is much harder for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're distinctly different, at least experientially for me. If I see a cookie on the counter, it creates a real, like I can feel the
like it triggers
salivation. For sure. Like it gets the engine going. So I like to have it buried, like out of sight, out of mind.
And can you just have one cookie and stop, or you feel like you end up overindulging when
if
it comes
it's an
to sugar?
exhausting day, really no. If there's more in there, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard.
Okay, so end of an exhausting day, you don't have any willpower left. You didn't have much willpower to say no in the first place, and that's when you find yourself indulging. So the way that you try to combat that is just to not have it in
Yeah, ideally
around.
I would have none. Like it would be no sweets in the house. Maybe fruit, like fruit would be cool, but no, yeah, cookies, ice cream, popsicles, all that stuff. I mean, I'm not hard against it. We have it, the kids love it, and I think it's fun. They appreciate it. They're not fat. So it's, I don't know, mixed relationship with it, with that stuff. But I really like fruit. Feels more natural to have blueberries and apples instead of all the other stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I also think the likelihood of like sugar in the body creates, whether it's plaque or cavities, or other externalities. Like the graph that always gets me is like people used to eat this much sugar on average, and now they eat. It's not even close. It's not like this. It's like a 20 times increase.
Yeah, I think about that all the time too. Like it was specifically refined sugar. Like our refined sugar intake is nothing like it was in the past. Okay. So, okay. And have you ever done anything to try to, like actually when it comes to whether it's a baked good like cookies that your mom mails us or ice cream that I will make homemade ice cream with the kids, or maybe it was Leo's birthday recently, so we had leftover ice cream in the freezer. Speaking of the forbidden fruit mentality, not creating that for our children with alcohol, that's the mentality I have when it comes to sweets. Like if you like, I rather have moderation when it comes to that and that kind of exposure for our kids. But I also personally don't struggle with that when it comes to sugary things. Like I
Yeah, you
can
don't. That's not your
have
vice.
it in moderation
Yeah.
and I won't overindulge.
Doesn't
Not
even
that,
seem like alcohol is either. You seem pretty uninterested in alcohol generally.
yeah, I mean, personally, I just don't like the way that it makes me feel that later that night in the it'll disrupt my sleep, and my sleep is sacred now, especially after having kids. And also I just feel like I'm just really sensitive to it now. Well, I was gonna ask you, so how have you ever tried to heal your relationship with sugar, or the sugar, would you call it a sugar addiction, or like how have you ever tried anything to alter that relationship, or has it just not been
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like kind of below the threshold of pain that's motivating to me. Like, actually, I haven't told you this, but recently I've noticed inflammation in my gums. And, I've had braces twice. I even had gum surgery. I have what's called a class 3 malocclusion. My top and bottom hip bite to bite. And for some reason, my gums are swollen. So I'm chat GPTing what the answer is to this. And it's like, get extra fluoride in your toothpaste. Got that. Get a spinning. So apparently toothbrushes that rotate are better than the vibrating ones that go up and down, which are, both of those are better than the just fixed toothbrush. And get one that's specifically for sensitive gums. And then also not having snacks throughout the day, because 30 minutes after you eat is when your mouth becomes acidic. Your mouth becomes less acidic. So having a snack like spikes that reaction of the bacteria in your mouth that's eating the sugar, and then deteriorates the enamel. And then if it stays in there, it'll swell up your mouth. So I'm like, okay, maybe the combination of the swollen gums and the sugar, because it always has to cash out to something. There's one thing to
you
intellectually
mean you
know.
have to have a pain point that you want to
For
solve
sure,
in order to
right?
give up the sugar?
Yeah, it's one thing to know, I
Well,
have high blood pressure or something. It's another to like feel it. And I think that's part of aging well, is knowing the biomarkers and knowing you have to make a change before you feel it. Like I don't need to have a heart attack to know like you need to change the diet. So yeah, that's a learning process.
I feel like you in the past have gone zero sugar for like a month at a time. Like, yeah.
It's always if there's a motivation. So if there's a pain or reward, whenever I'm competing in jiu-jitsu and I have to cut weight, then I can do it, because it's like, okay, I got to make, 205 or whatever my weight class is. Then it's like, all right, no question. because it's for a purpose, which kind of, I guess, parlays into exercise is the balance of
Or
food.
if you have like an infection of any sort,
Yeah.
you'll go no sugar, I
Yeah.
feel like, or but you haven't like committed to just no additional, no added sugar.
Yeah, I forget if we've talked about this one, but I think Jordan Peterson mentioned this interesting experiment with mice where they took a mice down a pipe and they timed how long it would go across this pipe. And then they starved the mouse a little bit and they put cheese at the other end and it goes faster. And then they put cat urine behind the mouse and they measure it and it goes faster than the starved mouse with the cheese. But the fastest mouse has cat urine behind. He's a little bit starved and there's cheese in front. So motivated, the carrot and the stick at the same time. And I feel a little bit like that with food. If you have the motivation to look better or compete in a tournament or lose the thing, it's like you're excited to make a change and also fearful of what would happen if you didn't make the change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, my main motivator is not external any longer. It is how I feel. And so that I just want to feel my best each day. And I notice that maybe it's just like getting older and my metabolism changing, or maybe I'm just more sensitive to these things, less dissociated compared to how I was when I was younger, just more embodied. But I notice when, like, that's my main motivation for not drinking alcohol. I'm like, I just want to feel good, and I don't feel good when I drink even one glass of alcohol. Like I'll have half a glass of wine or something, or taste. I still enjoy the taste. Like we went out to dinner with our friends last weekend, and it's summertime. We went to a Mexican restaurant, and it's like, oh, I love a margarita. So I had, I had a taste of it. I am fascinated by this shift that I notice a lot of people are moving through, which is when we are younger, we have our conditioning and patterning that we inherit from our family of origin, and the, whatever is dominant in the culture around us. And a lot of what we're motivated by when we're younger is external validation. And then as people get older and they abandon themselves in that process of attempting to receive external validation that's not in alignment with their authentic truth, they must go through this deconditioning process of letting go of worrying about the external validation and becoming more internally validated and having an internal locus of control, and really caring about what is in alignment with your authentic experience and truth. And so, for me, that's largely what I am now motivated by when it comes to things like whether or not to drink alcohol when I'm out with my friends who are all drinking alcohol, for example. Like when I was younger, I definitely had nights or social situations where I would feel pressure. And it wasn't even like, there were experiences of overt peer pressure, which like when you're young, it's like, take this shot, whatever. There was lots of that. And I didn't want to appear uptight or whatever it is. And so you just go along with it. And I would say that's not even completely gone. Like I don't, even when like we're out with our friends at a restaurant, everybody else is ordering drinks, and I still consider it for a moment, and then I jump to now like how I will feel later in the night or the next day, and I make the calculation that it's not worth it. And I also, what is my intention with drinking this right now? Is it so I can feel more relaxed or joyous or celebratory? Well, are there ways that I can channel all of those things without the alcohol being in my system? And then also letting go of whatever the thoughts of that are just total illusions and projections from other people, that they're somehow judging me one way or another for not participating or ordering an alcoholic drink, that I have a problem with alcohol, or I can't let loose, or whatever it is. And so just like letting all of that go and just doing what you want to do is, sure. I think, such a journey. And especially when it comes to something like alcohol. But Yeah, like how would you say that your eating habits differ today from your parents, and how I don't know, maybe your parents might subtly judge what you're doing?
Yeah, I feel like we got to slide into how they make food, because food now that we eat has more chemicals in it. With the synthetic fertilizers and Monsanto's collaboration,
Like glyphosate, the pesticides and
glyphosate,
stuff.
pesticides. To buy things that are organic are more expensive, and so people who are, boomer generation that are cheap and cutting coupons, just not going to be valuing that much because it's not what they really grew up on. I think there's a learning curve. I think people do adjust, like both of our moms do have changed. I think they are aware of like the dangers in eating that stuff. But it's somewhat invisible, and it's a lag. It's right. It's like, okay, it's cheaper to buy this food. It looks just as fine. Sometimes it even looks better.
You're talking about like conventional produce?
Yeah, produce, anything that's grown
Or
that
conventional,
you would use. Yeah, and it's cheaper. It often looks better. It might be just GMO with pesticides, like looks better than the organic fruits sometimes, and vegetables. And then the lag
but does
time
not taste better.
Yeah, that's very often true. But it's subtle too. It's not always super obvious. And then the lag time for any health implications are so long that it's also the externalities of it are like, well, why is my thyroid doing this? Or why am I losing hair? Or, I don't know I'm not claiming to be an expert on that, but certainly there would be some negative externality that you would experience if you eat, like massive amounts of this stuff. So what level, how is it actually affecting us? And in large part, we trust the government to regulate a lot of this stuff. I know the U.S. seems to be more lenient. RFK seems to want to change that, but the chemicals that are allowed here aren't allowed in Europe, for example. So people report going to Europe and eating bread and being fine, and then coming here and, being allergic to the gluten or whatever. So I don't know if it's directly in contrast to how they would eat, but I imagine they didn't really have organic. Like everything was we just grew it in a farm, and maybe they had fertilizer. I don't know when they started putting down pesticides or how big that was. Let's see, in the 70s.
I actually just looked this up with this past weekend with our friends who were in town, because this came up in conversation. And glyphosate use started in the late 70s and really started to become mass adopted in the 80s. And so for our parents who are of the boomer generation, when they're growing up in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, they didn't have this issue of glyphosate and all of the gut damage that comes from the use of glyphosate. Yeah. And so that does seem, and then also we've had several more generations of the monocrop agriculture, and depending on synthetic fertilizers, which deplete the soils of the vital nutrients and minerals that make produce good for us, is the minerals that we get from the produce. And a lot of our produce now is we are not able to meet our basic mineral needs with the food that we're eating, because it's like empty of these nutrients. And so it does, of course, like there are answers to this, whether it's supporting regenerative agriculture, which I think we take a lot more effort to do. Our parents are coming around to it. I remember when I first started talking to my mom about, hey mom, you should really try to buy organic, or like pasture raised meats and that sort of thing. I remember she just like rolled her eyes at me and thought that I was, a spoiled, privileged, whatever, and that it didn't make any difference. And it's amazing to see her come around. And she's on YouTube all the time now, so she gets exposed, fortunately, to a lot of other content besides just what I tell her.
It is interesting what changes their mind.
And outside of, I would say what helps my mom out is she doesn't watch mainstream media. She's like, she doesn't watch mainstream news, and she goes out and educates herself. And she I think also too, just coming from with her Korean heritage, they very much approach food as medicine. Like if you go to a Korean restaurant, a lot of times on the menu, it'll say like it'll tout the medicinal properties of various ingredients in particular dishes. And so whether it's ginseng or ginger or anything and so, yeah, like I think that I have felt judged a bit in the past for sure with insisting that things be organic or another big thing I think is seed oils, like trying to avoid foods that, I mean, seed oils are just in everything, whether it's canola oil or sunflower oil or any of these seed oils that like even in things that you just wouldn't, it just doesn't need to be in there. Like for example, peanut butter. Like just checking, I think being like just anal retentive about checking ingredient labels because you think you're just buying a jar of peanut butter and like, no, you have to check the ingredient label to see that it's just dry roasted peanuts, not peanuts plus hydrogenated oils.
Why is that bad?
Because of the polyunsaturated fatty acids that lead to plaque buildup and chronic inflammation.
So the oils themselves are dangerous?
These are highly refined, industrialized oils. These are oils that are like chemically washed several times. It's just like it's not an ingredient that people were eating 80 years ago. And so there's, I think that there's the science, and nutrition science is probably some of the weakest science that you'll ever see because it's just impossible to control. But there is concern that like, okay, why are we seeing the metabolic and gut dysfunction at the levels that we're seeing it now at the population level? One theory it's obviously multifactorial, but one contributing factor, if you look at in the same way that sugar consumption has skyrocketed in the last 100 years, the same thing for polyunsaturated fatty, like omega-6 fatty acid consumption has also grown exponentially, and it's largely in processed foods because it's a cheap ingredient, and it's like in the same way that like high fructose corn syrup was added to everything because it's cheaper than cane sugar or any kind of whole unrefined source of sugar. So yeah, I think that it's tough when you confront your parents about these things because I think we've both experienced our moms maybe taking it really deeply personally if we like feeling judged, if we try to show them these things or educate them about it, because I think they feel guilty because they raised us on all these things and they just didn't. My mom actually all the time says like, we didn't know any better. We just didn't know. And they feel bad about that. And of course, like we'll say like, oh, don't feel bad about it. Like, I know that there's things that we're doing with our kids that in 20 years they'll be like, oh my gosh, you gave your kids that or did that. Like we're always just learning. But for sure, I think now we're seeing more and more just the skepticism for new innovative things when it comes to, food or anything that we put on our bodies or in our bodies. There's just big movement towards either a return back to old ways of cooking and eating and all of that kind of stuff, or fewer ingredients, simpler combinations of things, and that sort of thing. But it can be a source of tension. I find that with my girlfriends who are raising young kids, it can be a huge source of tension between like when grandmother wants to give your kids something versus how you want to feed your kids. And I think some of the biggest conflicts that I've had with my mom or my friends have had with their moms has been over this exact like topic. It just becomes a contentious thing. And I think it's partly contentious too because when you're trying to cross like generational divides, whether it's like gathering around the holidays or something like that, like a lot of times it can manifest in conflict like among families. And so, yeah, it's like, I think tough to try to chart your own path while not unnecessarily imposing on your family members around you.
Yeah, so true. So from here, I think we could talk about the impact of Ozempic and the pharmaceutical approach to the problem that highly processed food presents, namely obesity, which is, I don't know, arguably one of the biggest problems we have in society. You know, if you're obese, it just leads to massive, I mean, it's the single biggest contributor to predictable health expenditures. They correlate that largely to healthcare per patient per month fees, you know. So if you're overweight, you're going to have health problems way sooner, and they're going to be way worse than if you're not. And of course, the more overweight you are, the worse they are. So recently, it seems, although I'm sure there's been, prior to Ozempic, many, I don't know, a handful, some pharmaceutical drugs like take this pill and lose weight. There's the surgical intervention. We're going to go in and like take the fat out, and we're going to stitch your stomach. That's been around. Those are, particularly surgery is a heavy-handed approach. Pharmaceutical pills seem like they're not a heavy-handed approach.
Or shots in the case of Ozempic.
Oh, is it a shot?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought it was a
or,
pill.
Any of these like kind of GLP-1 and peptides and yeah.
Oh, they're all intravenously administered?
No, I don't think all, but yeah, it's a lot of them are shot.
Yeah. What's your take on that? I mean, I'm so skeptical of any pill that's going to solve this problem for people, but it seems to be largely positive. The patient counts seem to be pretty big. The side effects seem to be relatively small. Like, is this really just
I don't know that the side effects are small. The side effects are pretty serious. I mean, there's like questions of thyroid cancer and bone density issues, and maybe it affects, I don't know. You're altering your hormonal profile, so that's going to have an impact on every organ, including your brain. Mm-hmm. And it does affect, there are mental health dimensions to it. A lot of people talk about just this idea of like the noise being turned down. Mm-hmm. So they feel like, they're, constantly fighting these various cravings and that sort of thing. And then the cravings are just gone. That's how they're able to lose weight, because their appetite just goes down. Not only that, but there's also like, speaking of side effects, like some people have really serious ones, like terrible nausea and vomiting. I had a client who tried these things to help lose weight, and she had horrible like nausea and vomiting, being nauseous and vomiting is terrible. And so she just like couldn't tolerate them. So, yeah, not to mention, I mean, like my background's in orthopedics. I think about bone density all the time, and also just muscle mass. And when people are losing weight, they're losing both fat and muscle mass. And muscle is your most critical metabolically active organ in your body. And it's what helps to regulate your blood sugar. It helps to it's the single greatest indicator of your longevity is your muscle mass. And so
does that mean how much muscle you have?
Yeah.
Or how dense it is, or some specific
the amount
attribute?
that you have.
Interesting. Like per your body weight?
Yeah. Lean body mass. So, and it is, our natural state is to lose muscle mass as we age. It takes a lot of proactive strength training and protein intake to just maintain, let alone grow, as you age, because the default state is to lose. And so, yeah, like I think also, if it can be paired with, for people who've been really stuck when it comes to weight loss, I've like in the instance where you pair it with, you're doing all the other lifestyle interventions because as soon as you stop taking these things, also you can gain the weight right back.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so it's one of these things that, I mean, it's a wonderful drug from the pharmaceutical company's point of view, because it's like you're on this for life. It's not like it cures you. Yeah. It only helps you while you're taking it. And no one knows the long-term ramifications of being on these for life. And so But if I've heard like strategically paired with other lifestyle interventions, like you're lifting weights to try to maintain the muscle mass and the bone density as you lose the weight. And you're learning how to eat well and portion size and all of that kind of stuff. Like it truly is part of just gaining a bit of momentum, like in that weight loss journey, in that lifestyle transformation. Then I think if it can help you start shedding the weight and that's a motivator for you, like that boosts your morale about the whole thing. Like, and I've heard so many stories of people who just like are on cloud nine about finally shedding that weight. And so maybe it's easier to like, it's just like when you're learning to walk again after a broken leg. It's like you've been overweight for a long time. You just like crutches for a little bit and then eventually you let go of the crutches because you've rehabbed yourself along the way. So I think when used that way, it can be possibly like a really incredible thing. And it's helped people reverse type 2 diabetes, hypertension, like all these other comorbidities. But the problem is that most of the time they are not prescribed like that. There's no education to go along with it. You don't get the lifestyle interventions with it. People are just taking them and then not eating and then I don't know, don't really have a plan for the durability of the benefit. So I actually think that, of course, this is going to feel like what's the word I'm looking for, like self-promoting, but like mushrooms actually really help you to heal your like a huge healing part of my healing path with my relationship with disordered eating, because we didn't really get into my story about like my relationship with food, but like I had a really unhealthy relationship with food. I was a highly emotional eater. Definitely when I was really stressed, could go either way. I had periods where I became severely underweight in medical school because I was so stressed out with studying for the boards exam that I just didn't eat. Like there's a photo from the end of our first 18 months where my med school class, there was a big party to celebrate the end of like the pre-clerkship, pre-hospital curriculum. And I look anorexic. And then on the flip side of that, when I was really stressed out, like 3 years later, trying to match into orthopedic surgery, I went the other way where I was binging and I was about 15 pounds overweight. And I, again, look unhealthy. And then I would just yo-yo back and forth. And I think a lot of women struggle with this, and some men too, where I would get really restrictive and eat super clean for like 5 days. And then I would go on a binging spree and just super unhealthy. My skin suffered because of it. I had acne because of it. And my hormones, I think, were unhealthy because of it. So it was when like taking mushrooms that I had just such a visceral experience of being in my body, embodied, and realizing how it is the vessel for my consciousness, for my conscious experience, and how waking up to all the ways that I had been trashing my vessel, like with the alcohol abuse, with the processed foods, with all of it, fast food, like I like literally like purged in some ceremonies because of it, just like vomiting out all the ways that I was abusing my body and not treating it like a temple. I was treating my body like a garbage truck, not like a temple. And so I think that is also, for so many people, and myself included, like the way that we eat is it can be like a trauma response. If you've grown up with a traumatic upbringing and you didn't feel inherently safe in the world, if you're moving through the world in a chronic state of fight or flight or a chronic state of stress, then we turn to food to either numb that, distract us from that, satiate, bring us comfort. This is a way that we self-medicate in an unhealthy way. It's just like there's this like it's just so distorted. It's full of distortion, and what like this is gonna sound kind of woo woo hippie, but like I did an actual exercise where like you tune into the vibration vibrational difference between like a bowl full of fresh blueberries and a bag full of Cheetos. And like there actually like is a real energetic difference. You can imagine when you tune into your energy body more and more, and you're no longer, like I said, dissociated, your body actually gravitates towards the healthy food in a new way, that it no longer, I say what was once so effortful, like trying to eat healthy for me before used to be so effortful, is now effortless. Like my body, as I cleanse away all of the trauma, like it, and I just become more comfortable. It's a work in progress, obviously, but as I feel more safe in the world, more safe in my body, as I let go of a lot of the limiting beliefs about the world, my place in it, who I am, and just become more grounded, then the eating just follows that. So it's like really going to the root instead of addressing everything at a surface level. Like really getting to the root energetically, and then everything that was once effortful becomes effortless. You don't have to, instead of this like top down coercing of like, oh no, you should eat that, you shouldn't eat that. It's this like bottom up, like, no, this is just what my body wants now. And so I think a beautiful way to heal yourself is with mushrooms, like, and they really help you. I mean, they are purgative for a lot of people. You know, they make you vomit, they make you, and you're like vomiting out energetically everything that's no longer in alignment with the higher self that you're trying to embody.
I like that. It's very true. Yeah, I feel it when I'm in flow, exercising, in a good mind state, meditating, not interested in the sugary foods. Just like 7-Eleven just is like, everything in there is unattractive. But then your mind shifts, state changes, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I crave these things. So we really do oscillate between them. It's interesting. It's so interesting about the energy of it. I think there's probably a really deep level to that, as these things give off literal energetic vibrations, and then also we layer on meaning to things naturally. Mm-hmm. So the meaning layer is probably the one that we're feeling the strongest.
So who are you following these days for health inspiration?
Yeah, social media. It's certainly not mainstream media. It's not really written word, although Michael Pollan's book was good, or his general message, eat mostly plants, not a lot of sugar. What is he? What's the
I think it's eat whole foods,
yeah,
mostly
whole foods,
plants.
mostly plants. Yeah. That seems right to me. I don't know. It's not. I'm always interested in like the highest possible level understanding of these things. The mineral soil depletion seems like that's the system that has been broken. The sustainable loop of like animals eat food, they walk around, they poop, the manure provides fuel for the new plants, and they grow, and there's diversity. That all seems like a long-term, sustainable, healthy, ecological approach to food production in the cycle. And we kind of break that by removing the substance, the matter, from the crops. We eat it, it goes in the sewer, and like it never goes back into the soil. And then we try to solve that problem with synthetic fertilizers and pump phosphate all over the world. And the whole thing seems very unsustainable, and it would seem naturally like mineral depletion is going to have more and more negative health consequences. So that high level like cycle and understanding is fascinating. Not many people talk about it. You know who does is I got to include his name in the show notes because it's escaping me now. He went on Aubrey Marcus's podcast.
Dr. Zach Bush?
No, I mean, he has good ideas too, but it's the Indian, I think he made a living like teaching meditation, but he's the Indian guru kind of guy. I'll include his name, but he's basically
Not
going.
Deepak Chopra.
No. He's going. You'd know the name if I said it, but he's going around the world just talking about soil.
Oh, Sadhguru.
Sadhguru, yeah. So I like what he's trying to do. I think it is about the soil. I think that's like the biggest thing. Surely, Paul Saladino, is that his name?
Do you follow him? Yeah.
Yeah, he seems to be like talking about what to eat and then be aware of the ingredients, like the pesticides, the GMO, all this stuff. It's like, don't eat this, don't eat this, don't eat this, eat this instead. That's cool. But I think the deeper understanding of the food process is more interesting to me, because if you understand that, then all the details will just make sense. How about you? Are there people that you think about?
Yeah, I follow a lot of people. I feel like this is like right in my zone of interest. So, I think most of the mainstream like social media health influencers I do, whether it's Andrew Huberman or Mark Hyman or Dr. Zach Bush, I would put in that category too. He a lot of what he teaches is about soil health, and a lot of what I learned about glyphosate and how it affects our gut, specifically the lining of our gut. That is who I've learned the most from. I follow Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I follow a few naturopathic doctors who are really deep on understanding nutrition in terms of gut health. And so, I would say my philosophy has evolved a lot. I explored many different diets when I was in my 20s, whether it was paleo or vegan or any of these things. And I would say nowadays, it's like much more well-rounded. I would say it's whole foods based, not restrictive of any particular food group. Pasture-raised meats, organic fruits and vegetables. With dairy, I think whenever possible, have it be grass-fed and low temperature pasteurization to try to maintain all of the nutritional benefits and the immunoglobulins that help with our immune system and that sort of thing. And when it comes to grains, like whenever possible, sourdough bread that's fermented, fermented foods in general, like making sure I get plenty of, whether it's sauerkraut or kimchi or yogurt, bone broths in general. You grow microgreens. You're the one that has been growing that for how long now?
About a year.
Yeah, about a year now. We've been growing our own microgreens, which are just such, especially broccoli microgreens are such a wonderful micronutrient. It just hits, I think I'm going to mispronounce it, but sulforaphane is the particular compound that's just major cancer prevention compound. And so we'll sprinkle microgreens on our meals. And so that's sort of the philosophy that I have now. And so full fat everything, real sugar, no artificial sugars.
What do you think about GMO?
Gosh, I haven't really done a deep dive on that in a while. I think it's like there's so much other low-hanging fruit that I don't worry about it as much.
Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, all of our produce is GMO. Every single, if you look at wild strawberries or wild broccoli, there's some really cool infographics that get circulated around where it's like, looks nothing like what the wild version looks like. So humans have, to some extent, been genetically modifying, take corn, for example. I mean, corn is the most genetically modified now, like with Monsanto and all of that. So, but the Mayans were sorting corn for a long time, but yeah, I think where GMOs become challenging are when they are specifically engineered to be pesticide resistant. And so they're able to, and fungicides and so they're able to just blast the produce with all of these toxic pesticides, fungicides, and then that gets passed on to us. And we haven't been genetically engineered, and all of that can kill our microbiome in our gut. And so I think there's a lot of gut dysbiosis, leaky gut, SIBO, all of these problems that come from so I don't know that the produce itself being genetically modified is a problem, but more so that because it makes it resistant to these things, then we get higher doses of it. And so that's where I think it becomes a problem. So yeah, I think we largely covered most of the bases that people be. I don't know if there are any questions people have regarding like how we think about food and like approaching just diet. I think that's the last thing I'll say is like, put whatever questions in the comment section. I love getting inspired by those, but I'm also just a really big fan of each and every person being their own N of one experiment and just becoming your own scientist and just experimenting on yourself. And that we are just our guts and like who we are, just ever evolving and dynamic. And so what works for you in one time of your life may change in a different phase or season of life. And so just to constantly be flexible and adaptable and intuitive and practicing discernment with what's true for you, and that no one is going to be able to tell you what to do, that it's about, awakening your own inner healer and allowing yourself to have the grace to, figure this out, but just trust that the body is always wanting to come into balance. And so it's just about, sometimes it's as simple as just removing things that are throwing you out of balance, or maybe just replenishing things where you might have some small deficits, and to trust that you will find the way, as long as you keep tinkering and iterating and finding what works. And yeah, that's probably the last thing I'll say about that. So
Sweet.
yeah, until next time.
Peace and eat well.
Peace.
Yeah. Sweet.